Hello and welcome to the Paul Weller Fan Podcast. I'm Dan Jennings. What an exciting time to be in Weller world right now. A brand new album on the way. You may have heard as well, there's an incredible book coming soon. Yes, Dancing Through the Fire, the authorized oral history for myself, Dan Jennings, lands this September. You can pre-order now, more on that a bit later on. Plus, we've also had a single, songs Pinball and Lawdy Rolla, revealed in recent days. The latter has a brand new music video, which has gone live in the past week as well. And that's what this podcast is all about. I'm joined by a brilliant director and photographer who's all about making beautiful visual art. Jackson Ducasse is on this podcast. He's worked with people like Nile Rodgers, John Legend, Blondie, Amy Macdonald, James Bay, New Order, Imagine Dragons, and as you'll find out, Dua Lipa. He's a really lovely guy as well. You're going to hear about his work on 66. He did a bit of stuff on that, but also the brand new video, Lawdy Rolla, Paul Weller, which is available right now. Let's get into it. Jackson Ducasse, thanks for joining me. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you, Dan.
Where in the world do we find you?
I'm currently in Milan.
Oh, look at you.
I know.
Living the dream, man.
Feels very luxurious. Yeah. I'm currently on tour with the singer called Dua Lipa.
Oh, yeah, I think I've heard of her, yeah.
Yeah, she's a bit more of a pop star. Yeah, a bit more pop.
I mean, a massive worldwide star. So what are you doing? You're filming stuff, obviously, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so just doing on-tour videography, behind-the-scenes filming, camera rolling whenever we're doing something. So yeah, it's been great.
We'll talk about Weller, obviously, in this conversation, but Dua Lipa, I mean, most people would have seen the big Glastonbury performance, was it last year? I mean, there's so many set changes, costume changes. I mean, just keeping up with the choreography on that type of artist is just is a job on itself, right?
Yeah. No, it's very full on. I mean, she works incredibly hard and all of her team do as well. So keeping pace with that is like you say, it's definitely part of the job. I mean, you know, hitting record on the camera is one thing, but making sure you're in the right positions to get all the shots and everything else is definitely a big part of the challenge. But yeah, it's great fun and everyone here is super amazing. So it's been a really fun experience so far.
Well, let's talk Weller. I mean, how did you squeeze this in for the start? But how do you get this gig?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of came out of the blue. Like I just got an email from Parlophone, who, you know, Paul signed to Parlophone again recently, and they're doing this record together. And I just got an email out of the blue from a lovely woman called Francesca, who's the kind of creative commissioner there. And she just dropped me a line and mentioned that Paul and Claire had wanted them to approach me, Claire obviously being Paul's manager, about doing a video together, which was a massive surprise. But it was a really, you know, obviously a great thing to read. It was definitely a very nice email to receive. And as you are aware, I did lots of work with Paul and Claire and the previous label on 66. You know, we did kind of everything but a music video. You know, we captured content at Black Barn and we went to Abbey Road and we filmed the kind of album cover photo shoot and various bits of parts of the story, interviews with Peter Blake and people that were sort of instrumental in the making of the record and things like that. So I guess along that journey, I got to know Paul and Claire a bit better, and presumably I left a decent impression on I know on the last record, Paul got a lot of his friends to make the videos with him. And I realized when I was watching the movie Sinners this year that one of the guys who made one of the videos was actually like a starring role in that movie. And then I watched the Amy Winehouse film and he was in that as well. So I didn't realize quite how kind of like famous some of his friends were, but they all did a great job. So, you know, as far as I was concerned, making a music video for Paul Weller was not a thing that I would get a chance to do. And I just got the email out of the blue and, you know, they had a bit of a concept in mind, and then we just developed that on a little bit and went ahead and did it.
The concept in terms of the framing of the video and the idea was came from that team in a way, right then?
Yeah. You know, the email was kind of, Paul wants to use split screen, wants to feature the people who play in the track, you know, so it was going to be a performance video, use of split screen and then color backdrops, basically. That was the kind of concept. Then we had a bit more conversations and a kind of another creative element came into the discussion, which was about trying to get a vintage car and a kind of friend of Paul's, who's this apparently very cool younger guy who looks like Miles Davis, so I was told. But we had to strike that from the concept eventually for a couple of reasons. But yeah, so we kind of stuck very closely to Paul's like original idea, which was this idea of kind of, utilizing color backdrops and performance. And I think, you know, when I was thinking about the concept, like I wanted to make it feel very, I think like the issue was with the brief was it was very simple. So sometimes when you have a simple video concept, people kind of get a bit concerned that it's not necessarily going to be enough or going to hold your attention. And so the challenge was, you know, how do you make it a bit more stylish or a bit more cinematic or a bit more engaging and exciting?
We'll talk about Weller and how he looks in a sec, because he does.
Yeah. Which is always great. Which is always great.
Yeah. Well, the split screen gives you often it's because people are also in different locations. My gut was when I'm watching, I was thinking, surely they're not all at Black Barn, but was everything at Black Barn, or were they?
Yeah. So that was the kind of condition of the production was, you know, like it has to be done at Black Barn, which is always great because I love a lovely trip down to Surrey, and it's a great space, and obviously Paul's very comfortable there, as are his kind of team. So yeah, we shot it all in Black Barn, but the main thing was, you know, Claire was like, listen, we've done a million things live at Black Barn, so we don't want it to look live at Black Barn. And I think that was her concern with the kind of simplicity of the concept. But within the space, we managed to kind of erect two large backdrops, and then we sort of had two, you know, we created like a corner, a sort of 90-degree angle, which we had the two different color backdrops set up at once. And then we captured from two cameras, so that I had my DOP shooting one and I shot the other one. And yeah, that enabled us to get cool different angles and, you know, do the usual thing that you do on a video shoot. But yeah, it was in the space. I mean, whatever location you're in, you always suffer sort of limitations. And Black Barn is a big studio. You know, if you were anyone with a recording studio of that size is very fortunate. As film studios go, it's not necessarily the biggest, but it was big enough for us to do what we needed. And I think we were able to capture something that looked really cool and stylish, and didn't feel like it was in Black Barn, which was really important.
The other thing is, I mean, there are three of them in the video playing, right? Primarily Paul and Cradock, but more instruments than the number of people. So how does this work? How did it take me through the actual approach? And are they playing live at points? Or, I mean, Paul's not miming, I would guess, but obviously you've got to sync it all up to the actual song, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the challenges. I mean, there was a couple of things that like didn't feature on the track. One was the Rhodes piano, I think. But apart from that, every instrument that's played on the track basically features in the track. So Steve has a bit of a kind of octopus type role. You know, he's playing almost every instrument on the track, and he did actually play almost every instrument on the track: drums, bass, guitar, piano. Paul, I believe, played the Rhodes, but didn't want to do that on the day. I think we all agreed that it was better for him to kind of just do his like singing and you know, do that kind of frontman thing. And then we had the wonderful sax player as well. It's like we always do in a music video. I mean, normally we just play the track as loud as possible, and then they perform back to it. But, you know, they're not miming like Paul would be actually singing in the space. Steve is actually like hitting the guitar and the keys and so on. You just hope that everyone knows their parts very well. I mean, the sax part was a bit more interpretive because I just don't know how, you know, in terms of how he recorded it, it's such a kind of like improvisational part. You know, it's incredible. Like, it's when you listen to the sax solo, like, which we did a lot that day, it's a wonderful piece of the track. It's almost like the most important part because it kind of comes in a couple of sections and it really like brings a new dimension to it. And I love Kevin Hayes. He played the sax on the track. He's a wonderful guy. He came along. He looked incredible. He's making an album, so I'm told, which I'm very keen to hear. But his sax part in the track is just this incredible sort of improv feeling, free Ethio jazz kind of moment. Capturing that in sync was difficult. That was difficult. I think it was nearly impossible for him to play, and I don't think anybody could have listened to that, even the person who made it, and replay it. So the editor had to get a bit creative with how the sync looked in the edit. But I think with most things with film, it's kind of like, it's all about feeling. You know, if you can make the vibe feel right, you don't necessarily need to have the exact fingers in the exact places. And it's only people who are kind of incredibly well musically versed who'd be able to know, oh, you're not hitting, you know, in most movies, there's YouTube videos where you can show scenes of music in films where the people aren't playing the right part, you know, or the thing's not plugged in, or the amp's not on, or the desk isn't on, or whatever. And it's only ever clever musos who sit and go, look, that's a problem. You know, 90% of the music of the movie audience is going, oh, I love this bit, you know, and they're not thinking about that. So
yeah.
We have to kind of utilize that.
Playing a C there. That's
exactly. So, you know, we made sure that we had ample close-ups and things we could cut around. And Kevin's part, you know, there was lots of kind of like the sax, I don't know what you call it, the hole.
I don't know. Yeah, the hole is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, you know, the air hole, the blowhole, the mouth, I don't know, is kind of taking up the majority of the frame. So yeah, there was a bit of creative license there. There's lots going on, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? Things cutting and little section, you know, we utilized that. I think that gave us an advantage because it meant that we could kind of, you know, when I was talking to the editor, it was more about creating kind of compositions with the different things appearing in the different parts of the screen at different times, and the slicing of the imagery. That's the fun thing about doing that kind of split screen approach, is that it allows you to think not in individual images, but in how you kind of create like a little puzzle with the images that you have. So it was a cool challenge.
I think also the thing that he does in a really nice way, and I think a lot of this album is obviously it's all produced by Steve Cradock, and a lot of the instrumentation is Steve's studio in Devon. What this track does, and the video particularly, also enables you to see the complexity of the song.
Yeah.
Because it is a really complex song, and we'll talk about Weller singing it as well, but just the instrumentation. I mean, the amount of people I saw when the video went live were really like, hold on, Cradock's playing drums. What's going on?
Yeah. I didn't know he had that in his locker, honestly. I didn't. I mean, he's an incredible guitarist. He's one of the best guitarists I've ever heard. But yeah, he plays the drums great. And I don't know if there's anything he can't do.
It's annoying,
laughing about it on the day. Yeah, he's funny. Yeah, he's a funny guy, but he's great.
So let's talk Weller. I mean, looks brilliant. Yeah. I mean, you're not telling him what to wear for that shoot, right?
No. I mean, that's the great thing about Paul. Like often on music videos, or, you know, music press things, whether it's photography or whatever, the word stylist comes up a lot. Or, you know, what are they going to wear? You know, what's your ideas for styling? Which is always a thing that I am happy to kind of contribute toward. But it's always a massive relief when someone like Paul comes along and there's never a question, because it's like, well, Paul knows what he wants to wear. He's always going to pick something great. Do you know what I mean? It's always going to be ironed. It's always going to be, you know, like properly cared for. It's just always going to look the part. So yeah, he's just effortlessly stylish, and he's just very timeless style as well. And I love that kind of style anyway. Do you know what I mean? So Paul is a dapper Dan, really.
Yeah, it's a beautiful Savile Row suit, I gather. But really lovely. But also, I love the kind of the old style, almost like the retro microphone type approach as well. Was really cool. I mean, it just looks great.
Yeah. I mean, again, it was even when we were getting the chair in and the guitars in, for, you know, it was those were things that were important. Making sure we used the grand piano in the shot. When Steve had to sit down because he had to sit on a stool, he just was like, get the Abbey Road stool, you know. So they brought in the Abbey Road, so, you know, so it's things like that which again you wouldn't necessarily even pick up on if you weren't aware of it. But that presence of like music history and those important touches, you know, they're like subtle elements in there, but they're all part of just the sort of innate like history and culture of like what Paul and those guys do. So I think that's definitely something that we wanted to be able to pay homage to, but not in a way that was like, do you know what I mean? Knocking you on the head. It's just those things just exist there. But if you were to just take 5 guys and get them in a room and to play the same thing, it just wouldn't look like that. And that's not necessarily something I did.
Paul's got such clear attention to detail, actually, though, hasn't he? And actually, as an artist, he's very visual as well. Whether it's the album cover or the video, he cares about the end product in that way, right?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, so it makes your job a lot easier when it comes to sourcing, and you know, it's just like sharing things and showing the colors of the backdrops we picked out, and you know, suggesting to the other guys, you know, if you are going to wear something, try to wear this or that. But there's not a lot that you have to do when it comes to Paul. Like, he knows what he wants, and it's just being clear with the communication, making sure you get to that end goal, really.
Now, I say this to photographers a lot when they're filming gigs, and you'll get this as well, where you might be a fan of the music, you might love the artist, but actually you've got a job to do and your focus is what's down the lens. But you're in a room in this occasion with Paul Weller and he's singing this song and it's a great song. I mean, that's an amazing experience, but you've got to focus on the job in hand and looking at the footage, right? You can't be, this is not you enjoying a Paul Weller performance in that same way, right?
No. I mean, no, it is. But yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing. Like obviously Paul is a legend and it's, you know, it's odd to me. There are moments when you're doing that you're feeling like a bit of a kind of, you know, not out of body experience, but, you know, you do have to kind of float between two realities. One is like a kind of pinch me moment of like, wow, I'm making a music video for one of my kind of musical icons. And the other is, make sure, make sure you're singing the right part, Paul, and it's like you're asking him to do something and giving him direction. And that, you know, that in itself is quite an odd thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, who am I to tell Paul Weller what to do? When it's like, well, they have hired me to do that. So I'm going to, you know, Not that there's a lot of directing that I had to, you know, it's just little things here and there. And that's why I think this job is just like, if you can do it, it's a real privilege and a pleasure because the music's great, the people are great. And yeah, so you couldn't ask for anything more. I mean, when I heard the track for the first time, yeah, I thought this is awesome. And it's, you know, it's quite different, you know, like obviously Paul's done loads and loads of stuff, but it's a really interesting track. Obviously it's a cover version of a not very well known song, which I did find the original of on YouTube, and which, I mean, the original is a great, really awesome kind of rarity type bluesy sort of number. But, you know, I thought, yeah, he's done it again. The last album is really beautiful sounding, very luxurious. And like he was sort of saying his crooner album, you know, in a way. But this is completely different. You know, his singing's obviously great, but it's much more, I mean, I haven't heard the rest of the record, but you know, from what I gather, it's a bit more bluesy, a bit more rock and roll really. But
lots of folky bits as well. There's so many textures to the whole thing. Yeah. But that's a really difficult lyric to sing. I think. I mean, it's a really, like the words, it's not like, I mean, Lawdy Rolla is a thing on its own, but the whole kind of intonation of different things, it looks to, I mean, I'm not an expert in singing anyway, I don't, you know, but I mean, he knows what he's doing better than I do. But it seems to me that's a complex song to sing.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. But he made light work of it. And I think they all did. Like, it's just the vibe. They're just feeling the vibes. And when you like the composition, they're just gliding along, just surfing through it. You know, it's like, it certainly looked like they were having fun. And it's a funny song. It's, you know, the lyrics are quite interesting. So apparently they removed a verse because it was a bit too blue. I was told.
Really?
So, but then they managed to make it longer than the original whilst removing an element as well. So I don't know how they managed that, but we were discussing that.
Oh, right.
I think it's because of the sax solo. They kind of extended it a bit. I mean, it's maybe 30 seconds longer than the original. But yeah, you know, it's a bit of a low down, dirty, kind of sleazy lyric, which we love.
Yeah.
We love that. You know, I say bring back the sleaze. Bring back the sleaze.
Now, as a creative, one of the biggest frustrations in life is often the feedback loops, right? So you're sending over version 1. Suddenly, you know, weeks later, we're on version 55. How quickly do we get to a final version? What's it like on the kind of feedback loops?
On this video, actually, it was great. It was not difficult at all. Paul was pretty happy with it. There was a minor thing, like he had a note about the intro. He just wanted the intro to be a bit more snappy. So we sort of added some different stuff. I mean, I agreed with all their points. I think when I was younger, which was a long time ago now, but when I was younger, I, you know, would be fearful of that stage of feedback, you know, from sending over edits. Often you would kind of delay sending a thing for as long as possible because you couldn't face the feedback. But then at a point, I just was like, well, it's going to get done. You know, whether they like it or they don't, it will be finished quicker once you get it over. And the whole point of this job is it's a collaborative team effort. And obviously my role as a director and as a creative is obviously central to the making of the thing, but it's not the be all and end all. And I don't position myself in that kind of like dictatorial role there. I'm a kind of conduit for the making of the concept. So as soon as I can share it with people, I will. And sometimes videos go to version 55. I've definitely been there. You know, I've even back in the day been there. It was a video I was editing, not one that I directed, but the director gave up on it. And I was kind of tasked with finishing the video. And there was even, I was talking about this the other day, there was even a point where the label sent the video to a market research team. And then I subsequently received a sort of 25-page document of handwritten notes from teenagers of what bits they didn't like. And
oh, God, brutal.
Which I thought was like a hilarious thing to do. I mean, market research plays its role. These days you get live feedback, don't you, because of Instagram and whatnot, comment sections. But that was definitely an insane video. But the irony of that was that after receiving all that feedback, we kind of went from version 12 or 13 back to like version 4 or something. If you can't nail it in 1 or 2 rounds of feedback, you're probably always going to be in a bit of an issue. And with this, it was really nothing. It was tighten up the sync here and there, make the intro a bit more jazzy. And that was about it. I made sure with the editor, I was like, listen, I don't want this going over until we're really happy that it feels really good. And that's generally my approach now, is like, I try to not rush anything out. That being said, we got it done. We did the shoot on Friday. I flew to Germany on Sunday to join up with the tour that I'm on now. We got the first edit over the following Monday. I think we sent it on Bank Holiday Monday, and they fed back and it was done by a couple of days later. It was rapid, and I think it was a bit complex with the split screen to lock it all in. But I think me and the editor got to kind of version 3 before we sent it. And that was the version 1. And then from that point, it was a couple of touch-ups and then done.
I had major flashbacks to my radio script writing days then where...
Yeah. No, I mean, people, I think, feedback's an important part of the creative process, but yeah, sometimes you just got to let it go. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise you could just, you can always improve on a thing, but I'm a big believer in obviously do your best, but the longer you close the doors on the thing, the less air it gets, the less it can live and grow. And I think you just get stuff out there and let people be the judge of a thing. Then move on, because there's always going to be something else, right?
Well, there's also that hard deadline. I don't know if you know, but over the past 18 months, I've been turning this whole podcast series into a huge, big oral history book and working with Weller HQ on that. And there is that thing where that's a never-ending thing. Like the amount of times I'll be like, oh, I've got this last-minute interview. I can sneak this content in. I can sneak this content in. But also that thing of having to let it go is because we're working with a major publisher. They've got the experience. The editor's got the experience. I've never written a book in my life. So having to kind of trust that process. But there's bits where you're like, I really love that line, but they're like, yeah, but it doesn't work in the context of this massive thing. Oh, okay, I'll let it go. You've got to trust the people around you, right?
You do. Absolutely. And that's why with scenarios like this, I'm very, very happy to defer to the wider team, because exactly that, there's all these things with, brand identity or, artistic identity or whatever that, like you say, you can discard things, which it's just it's very important to not be too precious about things. But also, I think the point is, if you have a strong concept from the beginning, then, like I say it like this, it's like an idea is a bit like a comet, and as the comet passes through the atmosphere, parts get stripped away. If the comet is powerful, if the concept is strong, as it passes through the atmosphere, it will retain size and it will have a greater impact at the end. But if the concept is weak, as it reaches the ground, it will be diminished to a small stone, and so if your concept is weak, at every round when people tear away with bits of feedback, eventually you'll end up with a piece which is just a bit nothingy. Nice. And so if you have a strong concept, don't be afraid to discard things, because ultimately the core, your burger in the middle of your bun won't be small and pathetic. It will be meat and juicy. So that's what I think. And if you have a weak concept, you allow people to kind of get their ideas in, then it will become an item of kind of consensus decision making, which is fine, but it doesn't necessarily make for sort of long lasting historical artifacts.
When this goes out in the world, we did actually get notice on this. We got it's coming at 4 p.m, folks. And then,
yes,
I mean, I don't know whether you live in Weller World like the rest of us, but it goes wild, the forums, everything on Facebook, people sharing it or whatever. Are you sat there waiting for it to go live?
Well, I mean, kind of, like, obviously, because I'm very busy at the moment, I'm trying to not look at my phone too much. But obviously you're aware, you're anxious. And I mean, they were very keen to get it out straight away. They weren't like rushing us in an unfair way or whatever. But they were like, right, we're launching this kind of as soon as they had it. So I knew that it was going to be kind of 24 or 48 hours once they had the approved final video. But then, I'm at this moment in time, I'm kind of thinking, right, shows up at, 8:30. I've got to make sure I've got my bits sound checks at 5, blah, blah, blah. So I'm very like focused in the moment, but I did notice on my editor, Shay, who is fantastic. Shout him out, who did all the wonderful work on the video and also lots of the work on the previous album as well, which is where me and him met. I noticed on his Insta that he'd reshared the teaser clip from Paul. And I was like, oh, there it is, so it came to me as a surprise as well. I still haven't been able to do a post about it because I've just been a bit like, had my hands so full of all this camera equipment. So it's something that I need to do, but I will as soon as I can. And I've got hopefully some behind the scenes pictures that I took on the day, although I don't know if they'll come out because we had a very dark lighting setup, which was perfect for the cameras, but not so perfect for film cameras. So right. We'll see. Maybe I'll be able to share some secret BTS at some point.
It's lovely to see Paul in a video as well again, because I don't know if you were at when they had the 66 stuff last year, there was the big event at Earth.
Yeah, I was there. We filmed that.
Do you remember Paul's comment about seeing himself on video? Yeah. Which I think I can repeat it. Paul said, what was it? Something along the lines of, he doesn't like seeing himself in videos these days because he's got a face like a Sainsbury's carrier bag.
Yeah, something like that, which was very funny. It was very funny, but it's funny because he's a very stylish person, but he just isn't vain. I think that's a real compliment to the kind of person that he is. That was a really hilarious statement.
It was.
At the time. Yeah, when he said carrier bag, I just thought, oh my God. But he's obviously a really handsome guy. And I wish more people would just accept, themselves the way he does. Because he's so stylish and he's, obviously a very handsome guy. It's stupid to say anything else. He doesn't love being in music videos necessarily, which again, I think is cool because it means that you can make these interesting, beautiful videos, and I think a lot of artists are forced into music videos when it just really isn't necessary. And loads of the best videos in history are for bands or singers where they're not in them. And there's a kind of philosophical point about the sort of space for the listener in the song, in the visual imagery of the record or whatever. And I always think with singer-songwriters, some singer-songwriters, they write songs which the listener wants to kind of feels like that they're singing about their life. There's a kind of almost like an abstraction to the songwriting where, the listener's like, oh my God, it's me, I'm there. And then you have people like Leonard Cohen or something where they're writing a very personalized story which relates to kind of their lived experience, to the world of Leonard Cohen or whatever. But they make it so mysterious and exotic that you wish you lived inside that world, or like Lou Reed or whomever. And, sometimes when the artist is too present in the work, it might block the space for the listener to imagine themselves within that world. They might also, look at Madonna or Lana Del Rey or whatever, and they might imagine themselves as that person alongside their visage. But, so I think it's cool. And I think he's not an egotist. He's not a self-obsessed person in that way. And he's he's maybe a bit overly self-critical of his appearance, but I get it. He's older than he once was, but no, he's a great looking guy. And I think, he can be very proud of that. But we're really happy to have him in there, honestly. And it's just it was just a cool experience, being in the room with all those guys, and they all look so cool and they're such lovely fellas and they're just so talented. So it's just a rare thing that you just get to sit, and everyone on set, it wasn't just me, it was the DOP and all the crew that we brought along and my producer, none of them were as familiar with Paul as I was, but all of them were just oh, great track. Oh, what a guy, and everyone's looking around Blackburn wow. Oh, it's like a museum, wow, what a place, what a lovely environment,
That's so nice, isn't it?
So everyone was very just having a really lovely day, and we just had such a nice time. So it's happy memories.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to let you get back to the day job. I've got one final question for you. I ask this of all my guests. You're allowed one Paul Weller song for the rest of your life. It could be The Jam, The Style Council, or solo. What would you go with?
A solo track. I mean, for me, my real Paul Weller love starts with Stanley Road era. It's You Do Something to Me or Wildwood, which I know isn't off that record, but probably You Do Something to Me. I feel like that was the first one that I just really, I don't know, I was quite young when I listened to that song, but it just really struck a really big chord with me. And that's the song that I just really like. I remember in the era of COVID, I went on a couple of long drives for kind of work stuff and took a break from where I was at that time. And that was one of the first songs. I made a playlist of kind of songs of that era. And that was like one of the first ones on the playlist. And I just remember putting that on and just, I don't know, it just puts me in a special mind state. And it's a song that I love, and I love his singing on it. It's a beautiful, beautiful record. Yeah. Probably that, but I love this new song. A couple tracks off the last album are really stunning as well, like really gorgeous record. So yeah, it's just, great artist, and honestly so proud to have been able to work with him on this.
This has been such a delight, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat to us. Good luck with the rest of the tour.
Thank you.
And whatever comes next. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, mate. And good luck with the book. Thanks so much for your time, mate. All right. Goodbye.
My thanks once again to Jackson Ducasse for joining me on the podcast. What a lovely fella. Do head into the show notes for this podcast if you fancy watching that video that we talked about. Lawdy Rolla, Paul Weller, directed by Jackson, is available right now. Also, I'd encourage you to dig into our huge back catalogue of other episodes of this podcast series, including the recent announcement of a brand new book coming this September. From myself, it is a massive project. Paul Weller, Dancing Through the Fire, the authorised oral history, will be published by Little Brown this September. You can pre-order right now. In fact, just Google it and it'll come up everywhere, wherever your favourite bookshop is. Really appreciate your support. Thanks very much. Now, let's say you've done that, but you still want to contribute, you still want to support the podcast in some way, just head to my website, paulwellerfanpodcast.com. Head into the store. You can grab yourself some podcast merchandise, or if you fancy it, just tip a virtual coffee as well. Just £3. A little thank you, if you like, for the free podcast. That'll be appreciated. Now, thanks for listening. Do spread the word. I'll see you next time.